Brothers and sisters, warriors of the mind, listen well. There are forces in this world that seek not to break you, but to bend you. They do not strike you down with swords, nor do they come with chains. No, far more dangerous are the hands that reach for your thoughts, the whispers that plant doubt in your soul, and the eyes that watch, waiting for you to falter. Manipulation is not always loud. It is the gentle push disguised as concern. It is the subtle guilt woven into kind words. It is the illusion of choice when, in truth, your path was chosen for you. If you do not recognize these tactics, you will live as a puppet, your strings pulled by unseen masters. But if you open your eyes, if you dare to stand firm, you will become unbreakable. Number 1, the art of emotional leverage. There is a kind of control that does not require force. It does not come with threats, nor does it need physical strength. It is far more dangerous, far more insidious, and far more effective. It works silently, operating beneath the surface of a conversation, disguised as care, obligation, or expectation. It is the art of emotional leverage, one of the most powerful tools of manipulation, and one that you must recognize if you wish to remain in control of your own life. Those who master it do not need to demand your obedience. They make you offer it willingly. They will never tell you outright what they want. Instead, they will place you in a position where you feel compelled to give it to them, and by the time you realize what has happened, it will be too late. You will have already submitted. They will use your emotions against you, shaping them into chains you do not see, shackles you willingly fasten around your own wrists. But once you understand how this works, once you see the invisible strings they try to pull, you will be able to sever them. Emotional leverage works because human beings are not driven by logic alone. It would be simple to resist manipulation if it were only a matter of reason. If someone demanded something of you, you could simply refuse. But the moment emotions enter the equation, the battle changes. Guilt, shame, obligation, and fear, these are the weapons of the manipulator. They do not strike directly, they plant seeds in your mind, knowing that you will water them yourself. They will remind you of everything they have done for you, subtly implying that you owe them. They will twist their words in such a way that saying no makes you feel like a bad person. And because you do not want to be ungrateful, because you do not want to be heartless, you will comply. You will say yes when every part of you wants to say no. And you will justify it to yourself. You will tell yourself it was your choice, but it was not. It was planted in you. And this is the key to understanding emotional leverage. It is not about what they say. It is about what they make you feel. One of the most effective ways this tactic is used is through playing the victim. They will paint themselves as the wounded party, the one who has been wronged, even when they are at fault, even when it is their actions that have caused harm. They will find a way to make themselves look like the one who has suffered. They will cry, they will withdraw, they will act as if your refusal has hurt them. And if you are not careful, you will fall into the trap. You will feel responsible for their pain, even if you did nothing wrong. They will convince you that it is your job to make them feel better, to fix the damage they claim has been done. But this is an illusion. Their suffering is not your responsibility. Their emotions are not yours to carry. If someone truly cares for you, they will not place the weight of their happiness on your shoulders. They will not use sadness as a tool to bend your will. The moment someone tries to guilt you into compliance, you must recognize what is happening and stand firm. Another common method of emotional leverage is subtle guilt, not outright accusations, not open demands, just enough pressure to make you doubt yourself. It is in the small comments, the passing remarks, that stay with you long after the conversation has ended. I would never do that to you. I guess I just care more than you do. I understand. I just thought you were different. These are not direct commands, but they achieve the same result. They plant doubt. They make you question yourself. They create a narrative where you are the one in the wrong, where your refusal is a betrayal. And because no one wants to be seen as selfish, because no one wants to be the villain in someone else's story, you give in. You do what they want, not because they forced you to, but because they made you believe you should. That is how emotional leverage works. It does not take your choice from you, it simply reshapes the choices in front of you until you feel as if there is only one right answer. Perhaps the most dangerous form of emotional leverage is the use of love. Love, when genuine, is the strongest force in the world. But when twisted, it becomes the most powerful tool of control. A manipulator will tell you that if you truly love them, you will do what they ask. They will make their desires a test of your devotion, framing their selfish needs as a measure of your care. If you really loved me, you would. That one sentence has bound more people in invisible chains than any law or commandment. It turns love into a weapon, a means of coercion rather than connection. And because love is sacred, because we fear losing it, we bend, we sacrifice, we allow ourselves to be controlled, believing that our compliance is proof of our affection. But true love does not demand obedience. True love does not ask for suffering in exchange for loyalty. If someone requires your pain to feel secure, they do not love you, they control you. And that distinction is one that must be made before it is too late. The only way to break free from emotional leverage is to recognize it. To understand that guilt, obligation, and fear are not valid reasons to act against your own well-being. You must learn to separate your emotions from your decisions. Just because you feel guilt does not mean you have done something wrong. Just because someone is hurt does not mean you are responsible. Just because you care for someone does not mean you must surrender yourself to them. Strength does not mean being cold. It means being in control of your own choices. It means refusing to be moved by invisible forces, refusing to be shaped by hands that are not your own. It means standing firm even when every word, every tear, every carefully placed guilt trip tries to push you in a different direction. The manipulator thrives on weakness, on doubt, on hesitation. But the moment you see the game, the moment you recognize the tactics, their power over you begins to crumble. They can only control you if you allow them to. And once you realize that, once you take back control of your own emotions, they will have nothing left to hold against you. Number 2, the weapon of false urgency. There is a tactic as old as time, one that forces the unprepared into submission before they even realize what has happened. It is not done with force or with threats, but with the illusion of urgency. It is the manipulation of time itself. The deliberate pressure to make you act before you think, to decide before you understand. It is the weapon of false urgency. The manipulator knows that a calm and rational mind is difficult to control, that a person who has the space to reflect is a person who will see through deception. So they take that space away. They create an atmosphere where hesitation feels like failure, where thinking things through is a sign of weakness. They tell you there is no time, that you must decide now, that waiting will cost you everything. And in the heat of the moment, under the weight of their artificial pressure, you comply. You do not act because it is right or because it is wise, but because you feel that you must. And that is exactly what they want. False urgency is built on fear, the fear of missing an opportunity, the fear of losing something valuable, the fear of regret. The manipulator understands this and exploits it. They manufacture scarcity, making you believe that if you do not act immediately, you will lose your chance forever. They will tell you that this offer will not come again, that this decision must be made now, that waiting will only bring suffering. And because fear is a powerful force, because no one wants to live with regret, you feel compelled to act. You convince yourself that moving forward, even blindly, is better than hesitating. But in truth, the urgency is a lie. It is a smokescreen designed to prevent you from thinking clearly, from seeing the full picture. It forces you into choices you would never make if you were given the time to weigh them properly. And that is why manipulators rely on it, because they know that given enough time, you would see through the illusion. One of the most common uses of false urgency is in relationships, whether personal or professional. The manipulator will pressure you into commitments before you are ready, making you feel as though hesitation is a betrayal. If you don't decide now, it means you don't care. If you really wanted this, you wouldn't need time to think. These words are not arguments, they are tactics. They are designed to make you question your own instincts, to make you feel that wanting time is a flaw. But true commitments, real decisions that matter, should never be made under duress. Anything that requires you to act before you are ready is not in your best interest. Yet, manipulators will push you, pressing for answers, creating a fabricated urgency that does not exist outside of their influence. They know that if you took time to reflect, to breathe, To step away from their pressure, you might realize that their demands are unreasonable, and that is exactly why they rush you. Because their power depends on your lack of clarity. Another way false urgency is used is in business, sales, and financial manipulation. This deal is only available today. There are only a few spots left. If you don't invest now, you'll miss your chance forever. These statements are designed to trigger panic, to bypass rational thinking and make you react impulsively. The manipulator does not want you to compare options, to research alternatives, or to ask yourself if the deal is truly in your best interest. They want you to feel that the only choice is to act immediately. But step back for a moment and ask yourself, why? Why is something that is supposedly valuable being rushed? Why is there no time for consideration? The truth is, most real opportunities are not fleeting. If something is truly worth it, it will withstand scrutiny. If something is genuine, it does not need urgency to convince you. It is only the weak, the deceptive, and the desperate who rely on artificial deadlines to push you into decisions that benefit them more than they benefit you. Perhaps the most dangerous form of false urgency is when it is used to manipulate emotions. The master manipulator will create crises that do not exist, will manufacture problems that require immediate resolution, problems that only you can solve. They will call you in moments of chaos, telling you that they need you now, that you must drop everything, that you are the only one who can fix the situation. And because you care, because you do not want to be seen as cold or indifferent, you respond. You rush in without questioning, without considering whether this is truly your burden to carry, and that is exactly what they want. By keeping you in a constant state of emergency, they ensure that you never have the time to step back, to ask yourself whether this is your responsibility at all. They control you by controlling your sense of time, by keeping you in a cycle of immediate reactions rather than deliberate actions. And in doing so, they shape your life without you even realizing it. To resist the weapon of false urgency, you must reclaim your sense of time. You must recognize that urgency is often an illusion, that most decisions are not as immediate as they are made to seem. Whenever you feel pressure to decide quickly, stop. Ask yourself, who benefits from this urgency? Is this truly a moment that requires immediate action, or is someone trying to manipulate me into acting before I can think? The truth is, anything worth committing to is worth taking time to consider. Anything that cannot withstand a moment of reflection is not worth your energy. And the moment you understand this, the moment you refuse to be rushed, the power of false urgency crumbles. Because the manipulator does not fear resistance. They fear your patience, your ability to see through their game. And once you do, they will have nothing left to control. Number 3. The illusion of power. There is a deception more powerful than brute force, more effective than direct control. It is not found in chains or threats, nor does it rely on open domination. It is the illusion of power, the false belief that another person holds authority over you when in truth they do not. The manipulator does not need to be stronger than you. They do not need to have more intelligence, more skill, or more resources. All they need is for you to believe that they do. That belief alone is enough to keep you in submission, to make you hesitate when you should act, to make you surrender before you have even fought. The illusion of power is built on perception, not reality. It is created through carefully crafted words, through exaggerated confidence, through the subtle art of making you question your own ability. And once you believe that someone holds power over you, you will give it to them willingly. They do not need to take it by force. You will place it in their hands yourself. The manipulator understands that people are not controlled by real power, but by the appearance of power. They do not need to prove their superiority. They only need you to doubt your own. This is why they posture, why they present themselves as unshakable, as untouchable, as in they use language that makes resistance seem futile. You have no choice. This is just the way things are. There is nothing you can do about it. These words are not statements of fact. They are psychological weapons. They are designed to make you surrender before you even consider fighting back. The truth is, there is always a choice. There is always a way forward. But the manipulator does not want you to see that. They want you to feel small, powerless, incapable. They want you to assume that they have control so that you never test their limits, so that you never question the authority they claim to hold. The greatest trick of false power is that it does not need to be real, it only needs to be believed. One of the most common ways this illusion is created is through intimidation, not through direct threats, but through presence, through tone, through an unshakable confidence that makes others second-guess themselves. A manipulator will act as if they know something you do not, as if they are always one step ahead, as if opposing them would be foolish. They will carry themselves in a way that makes you feel as if they are untouchable, as if their position is secured beyond question. But if you were to push, if you were to challenge them, you would see the cracks in their armor. Because, more often than not, the people who act the most powerful are the ones who fear losing control the most. Their entire strategy is based on the hope that you will not resist. They do not want a confrontation, they want quiet submission. And the moment you stop seeing them as invincible, the illusion begins to crumble. Another way the illusion of power is reinforced is through status and reputation. People assume that those in positions of authority must be there for a reason, that their power is justified simply because they hold it. The manipulator relies on this assumption. They surround themselves with symbols of influence, titles, wealth, connections, prestige, not because these things make them powerful, but because they make others believe they are powerful. They do not need to prove their worth if people already assume it. This is why people hesitate to challenge those in high positions, why they defer to those who seem important. But power is not always a reflection of ability. Many who hold authority do so not because they earned it, but because they created the illusion that they deserved it. And many who obey do so not because they must, but because they never stop to question whether the power above them was real. Fear is the foundation upon which false power stands. The manipulator does not need actual control over you, they only need you to fear what might happen if you disobey. They will imply consequences without stating them directly. They will let you imagine the worst, allowing your own mind to do the work for them. Are you sure you want to do that? You don't want to make the wrong choice. I wouldn't if I were you. These statements do not openly threaten, but they plant the seed of doubt, of hesitation. They make you afraid to act, afraid to oppose, afraid to even think of breaking free. But the reality is, most of these fears are unfounded. The consequences you dread are often exaggerated, sometimes entirely imaginary. The manipulator counts on your fear, keeping you in place, because they know that in many cases, if you were to resist, there would be nothing they could do. Their power only exists so long as you allow it to. The key to breaking the illusion of power is recognizing its fragility. It is built on perception, on belief, on carefully crafted appearances that are meant to keep you from looking too closely. But when you strip away the image, when you challenge the assumptions, you begin to see the truth. That many who claim power are no stronger than you, that many who act as if they are above you are only standing on a foundation of lies. And the moment you stop believing in their power, they lose it. Because true power is not given, it is taken. It is built through action, through resilience, through an unshakable will that refuses to bow. And once you see through the illusion, you will realize that the only person who truly holds power over your life is you. Number 4, the cycle of guilt and reward. There exists a subtle and potent tool of manipulation that few recognize until it has already taken hold: the weapon of false urgency. Unlike overt threats or open commands, this tactic preys on your fear of missing out, of making the wrong choice, of losing an opportunity you might never get again. The manipulator uses time as a weapon, fabricating a sense of impending consequence that pushes you into acting before you can think clearly. They make you feel as if you must decide immediately, as if hesitation will cost you everything. This is not urgency. It is the illusion of it, a cleverly designed scheme to force your hand. And when we act out of fear, out of panic, we do not make decisions based on reason. We react, we comply, we surrender, not because we should, but because we are too afraid to stop and question. That is the manipulator's goal. They do not need to convince you, they only need to rush you before you can realize that their power is an illusion. False urgency is never about reality. It is about the story they tell you. The manipulator will make you believe that if you do not act immediately, you will suffer irreparable consequences. They will tell you that an offer is limited, that time is running out, that your only chance is slipping away. They will make their demands seem like emergencies, like moments of critical decision where hesitation is equal to failure. They want you to panic, because panic destroys logic, and when logic disappears, control becomes effortless. The fear of missing out is one of the strongest forces in human nature, and they will use it against you without hesitation. They will push you into making choices that benefit them, while you are too distracted by urgency to recognize that you are being manipulated. They will tell you that you must act now, before it is too late, before the doors close forever. But if you look closely, you will see the trick. The urgency is artificial, and the moment you refuse to react, the spell begins to break. False urgency often comes in the form of fabricated deadline. The manipulator will say that you have to act by the end of the day, by the end of the hour, by the end of the conversation. They will push you into a corner, making you feel as if there is no alternative but to agree to their terms. And for a moment, it will seem true. The weight of time will press against you, making it seem impossible to resist. But real urgency is rare. Most decisions, especially the important ones, do not need to be made in an instant. The world does not collapse when you take a moment to think, but manipulators do not want you to realize that. They do not want you to recognize that time is an illusion they create to control you. If they can keep you on the defensive, if they can keep you afraid of losing your chance, they will own you before you even realize you had a choice. But the moment you stop, take a breath, and refuse to let their false urgency dictate your actions, their power over you crumbles. You are in control, always have been. Number 5. The grand illusion of agreement. There is a deception more insidious than open lies, more dangerous than outright control. It is the grand illusion of agreement. The belief that you have made a choice when in reality the choice was made for you. The manipulator does not need to force you into submission. They only need to make you think you are in control, while subtly guiding you toward the outcome they desire. They do this not through force or threats, but through suggestion, through the careful shaping of reality, through the illusion that you have reached a conclusion on your own. And once you believe that the choice was yours, you will defend it, fight for it, and even convince yourself that it was what you wanted all along. The greatest form of manipulation is not making someone obey, it is making them believe that obedience was their own idea. When that happens, resistance disappears, rebellion fades, you become a willing participant in your own submission. The illusion of agreement begins with subtle influence. The manipulator does not argue with you directly, they do not demand obedience. Instead, they plant ideas like seeds, waiting for them to take root in your mind. They will use carefully crafted language, hints, implications, and leading questions. They will introduce concepts that seem harmless, that appear to be small, unimportant observations. I've noticed you're always so good at solving problems. You're such a team player. I really admire that about you. You always do what's right, and I respect that. At first, these seem like simple compliments, like words of encouragement, but they are not. They are foundations, built to construct a framework of expectation. The manipulator does not need to tell you what to do. They only need to create an identity for you, one that aligns with their goals, because once you believe in that identity, you will seek to fulfill it. You will hold yourself to a standard that was never yours to begin with. You will act in ways that serve them, all while believing you are acting of your own free will. And in doing so, you will make their control over you effortless. The power of the illusion of agreement is that it does not feel like control. The manipulator does not feel forced or coerced. They feel as though they are acting out of their own convictions. The manipulator ensures this by subtly reinforcing the idea that to act otherwise would mean betraying yourself. They remind you of your own words, your past actions, the commitments you have made. They make you feel that to change your mind would be to contradict yourself, to be a hypocrite, to lose your sense of identity. And so, even if your instincts scream at you, even if every part of you senses that something is wrong, you stay the course, because you do not want to admit that you were led into something you never truly wanted. You do not want to face the reality that your agreement was not truly yours. And so you convince yourself that you are always on this path, that you have chosen it freely. The manipulator does not just win your compliance, they win your loyalty. And once you are loyal, their control is nearly absolute. One of the most effective ways manipulators create the illusion of agreement is through selective information. They do not need to lie to you outright, they only need to show you the parts of reality that will lead you to the conclusion they want. They will control what you see, what you hear, what you know. They will guide your thoughts down a narrow path, making it seem as if you are exploring all possibilities, when in truth you are only seeing what they allow you to see. This is why the most dangerous manipulators do not argue. They do not need to. They do not impose their will through force. They shape your reality so subtly that you never think to question it. And when the time comes for you to act, you will do exactly what they wanted all along, believing with absolute certainty that it was your own decision. This is not agreement. This is a deception so complete that it makes you fight for the very thing that binds you. Another way this illusion is sustained is through social pressure. The manipulator does not need to convince you. They create an environment where their narrative is the accepted reality, where disagreement feels not just difficult, but isolating. They use the pressure of the group, the expectation of the majority, the weight of approval to shape your choices. When you see everyone else agreeing, when you feel the unspoken demand to conform, it becomes easier to simply go along than to resist. The manipulator understands that most people fear rejection more than they fear being wrong. They know that humans crave acceptance, that few will willingly stand alone. So they surround you with voices that echo their own, making it seem as if their way is the only way, as if resistance is not just foolish, but dangerous. And in the face of that pressure, most people fold, not because they are weak, but because they feel they have no other option. They tell themselves that agreeing is the rational choice, but rationality has nothing to do with it. It is simply the path of least resistance, and the manipulator ensures that it is the only path that seems possible. Another powerful tactic used to maintain this illusion is the gradual escalation of commitment. The manipulator understands that no one would agree to complete submission all at once. Instead, they start small. They ask for a minor favor, something harmless, something easy to agree to. And once you agree, they ask for more. The requests grow little by little, so slowly that you do not notice the shift. What once seemed unreasonable now feels normal. What once would have made you walk away now feels inevitable. You do not even realize how much you have given away, how much you have surrendered. Until one day you find yourself acting against your own best interests, against your own values, against your own instincts, simply because that is what you have always done. And when you look back, when you see how far you have drifted, the thought of undoing it all seems impossible. So you stay, you continue, you agree, and the longer you do, the harder it becomes to break free. The way to break this cycle is to understand that true agreement requires full knowledge, full freedom, and full awareness. It is not agreement if you were pressured into it. It is not agreement if you were misled. It is not agreement if you only agreed because you were afraid to stand alone. True agreement is made with clarity, with choice, with the full understanding of all possible options. And once you recognize this, the illusion shatters. You begin to see where your decisions were never truly yours, where your choices were guided, where your fears and doubts were used against you. You reclaim your right to choose, to say no, to walk away without guilt. And the moment you do, the manipulator's control collapses. Because they were never as powerful as they seemed. Their greatest strength was your willingness to believe them. And when that belief disappears, so does their power. Now I ask you, will you live as prey to these tactics? Will you let the world shape you like clay, bending at every touch, giving in at every whisper? Or will you be like the mountain, unmoved by the storm? There is a price for strength. You will be called cold. You will be called heartless. They will say you have changed. But this is the mark of a free man, a man who sees manipulation and does not bow to it. A man who controls his own mind. That man must be you. May God bless you. Thank you.